In this session, Michael Toms of New Dimensions Radio interviews James Redfield, author of the Celestine Prophecy books.
James, one of the aspects of this book is that a lot of the words of God, as they're portrayed here in Conversations with God, are at odds with the religious doctrine and dogma of many of the religious institutions. What about that dichotomy?
Well, I think that it's really just indicative of where we are. I think that for so long, spiritual thought has been held in dogma. Maybe the culture could not hold it any other way. But I think at this point we are shifting away from the dogma. The germ of truth is moving away from some of the older, more fundamental institutions of religion, and into the great dialogue that we're having, the great conversation, in my view, where we're testing out for ourselves what to believe about spirituality, because we will find the evidence for it experientially. In the face of this grand conversation and the energy shifting over into the conversation, the religious institutions then have to evolve themselves and shift the dogma back toward the truth that I think is being defined popularly.
James, there's a quote in the book I want to recite here for you and get your comment on it. The deepest secret is that life is not a process of discovery, but a process of creation. Do you agree with that?
I think there's a semantic problem right there. But essentially, I think what is being conveyed in the Conversations with God is that this is nothing that we're to discover as though we did not already have it. In other words, living the spiritual life is really creating in the sense of engaging the experience. And I think in that sense it's very, very true. I think that in another way it feels like discovery. It feels like self-discovery. But I think we do have to keep in mind that it's that we're really not just discovering, we're remembering. We're trying to open up to that which we always have been.
Taking that a little further, one of the things that permeates Conversations with God is the idea and the concept of we create our own reality. You create your own reality. What is your perspective? Do we create our own reality?
Well, I think that I really think what's being said here is that we all create the reality, and so there's while we personally are responsible for much of what happens to us personally, also what happens to us personally is the result of what everybody else is creating out there, and all the interfaces that happen. And I definitely think that that's true. That's why to say that you're absolutely creating everything that happens to you is, to me, too strict. But to say that you are involved, you're co-creating everything that happens to you, I think is very close to the truth. But the main point in that, I think, is that it's not so much what happens to us as how we react to what happens to us, because that's that way we can make sure that if we react positively from a sense of love, then we are doing everything we can to keep our path on a positive track.
I think you brought out a salient point here, that it's not only recreating our own reality, but creating our own reality in the midst of many other realities being created by others. And this would explain or be a response to the critique that comes up about, well, did I create my cancer? Did I create my ill health? What about that? I mean, isn't that true?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we have to take responsibility for our part of it always. But I think we also live within a particular social reality that influences not only how we think, but influences the level of healthiness around us. So I think that our mission really is to not only to continue to project the positive personally, but also to be able to interact and hold on to this positive when we interact with others, because that helps them turn their creative energy around into the positive as well, which is another point I think he made very clearly in here, and that is that the essence of relating is the act of forgiveness.
Another thing that's talked about a lot in the book is that we create the devil and we create hell, and we also create heaven. What about that?
Well, I think that's I would call that the 10th insight. We are to a place where we realize that the highest part of ourselves is that all-knowing God self that truly evaluates how we're doing. And so we have to ultimately face how we've lived our lives, how we've created, how it has turned out. And if we feel disappointed in aspects of that life, it'll be ourselves that create that disappointment. If we are so cut off from the force of love that is who we are, that we're in total fear, it is hellish. And that's the definition of hell, is when we're so cut off that we are in that space instead of in a love space that has the connection with the divine.
At some point in the book, there wasn't a comparison or an equation of fear with hell, that when we're in fear, we're out of love, and that can be a hellish situation.
Absolutely. I just think that's the recognition that we're having out there. I called it the 10th insight because I think that's the insight that's circulating through the culture right now. We know there's no other judgment that's going to happen to us about our lives other than the one that we impose, and the greater part of us imposes. So I think there's a sense of awareness and an imperative too. I think that to go out and live our lives, taking all the risks that we want, that we think we need to go for it all, to try to create at our highest level, and take all the risks associated with that, because we know that we are going to feel responsible later on as to how well we've done it, and we're going to want to do it as well as we can.
James, one of the questions that came up for me was the reference to feelings as an indicator and a channel for truth. And I'm wondering are we talking about levels of feelings? Because feelings have been the cause of wars and conflicts for millennia. And so what about that idea of feelings being a channel for the truth?
Well, I took that to mean that inwardly, once we get past the negative feelings that maybe distract us, but that once we get clear that we have an inward feeling as to what is truth and what is not truth. And of course that's somewhat relative to our own situation, but each of us, I think, knows intuitively which move to make at any juncture in our lives. Now, we don't always do it because we rationalize it or we fall into fear about it and we can't really make the move, but at our highest level, if we can get to that, we know what to do and when to do it and what to say in every circumstance. We're guided. We have that higher self intuitive guidance at that level once we can find it within our own experience.
So in some sense, when you're talking about inward, you're really talking about going deeper to the deeper level of our feelings, right?
That's the way I would look at it. Yes, there are all kinds of emotions that run through our experience. It can be jealousy and irritation and hatred and all the rest. But I think that those we know now are come from a place of fear, not a place of love. And if there's something we know, I think, here in the 90s, if we're really going to live our true spirituality, we have to stay in a space of love. First of all, we have to find that for ourselves and define it, and then we always have to come back to this space of love, this state of being.